seen on the campaign trail? What have the candidates been up to in the presidential race, and whose message is resonating with the electorate? We talked to political analyst Haman Manyora, Barack Muluka, Gabriel Muduma, and Manu Magoma. Thank you all for making time for us tonight. Text us at 22422 and you use the hashtag GamePlan2017 on Twitter. And of that, in day 8 of the official campaign period, a lot has been happening over the last 1 week. Let's first look at the SGR train service launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta. That was, I think, on Wednesday, with some already looking as a game changer in the August election. What kind of impact do you think this will have politically in the presidential race? I'll start with you.
Thank you, Hussein. Remove politics out of it and you'll start seeing how far we can go with this kind of development. I told you last time, I think we need somebody who has a vision. I think we need somebody who has a big brain to be able to instruct the country into moving to what the 21st century demands. And if we are going by that, you will notice that we need more mega projects. I know people are going to talk about loans. I know people are going to talk, we need to cut this deficit. But one thing I'd like to remind you, Hussein, there's a rhetoric that people are not understanding. Our president and Mwai Kibaki, and you can give credit to the Nusum Kate government as well, but when it came to standing in UNGA in New York, Kenya, out of the 193 countries, 37 who are debt-free, Uhuru Kenyatta was given accolades for being or leading a country that was debt-free. That is 2013. So we are talking about mega projects. They are being funded. The question we should be asking, can we take that debt in? Are we able? Because it's not only the SGR. The delayed gratification, we may not understand it today, but 10, 20, 30 years from now, you'll understand why we need mega projects today.
Right. These are the same projects, I mean, good or bad, these are the same projects that the Jubilee leadership has been going out in the campaigns, asking Kenyans to re-elect them based on these projects that they've been doing. And that is why I'm asking, what impact will this have politically?
You know, I recognize the difference between analysis and flummery. And at this time, there's going to be a lot of political flummery. When I talk about the standard gauge railway, it might have impact in the sense that there are those who are already convinced, persuaded. There are also those who are already decided that it doesn't matter. And I think that going forward, the Jubilee team and battalion needs to be talking a lot more about translating that railway line into felt needs. How does it change people's lives? Yes, indeed, Muduma is talking about delayed gratification. Let it be spoken about. But if you're just talking about the standard gauge railway line as a monument, you're going to find people shooting it down. Just now, the Tanzanians have recently launched their own standard gauge railway line. It is 2 tracks. The first 300 kilometers from Dar es Salaam to Bagamoyo, costing far less than ours here, and it's also their own money, unlike our own. So to make it work, you must relate it to felt needs.
You know, we've got to remember, I don't think there's any Kenyan person alive today who saw the old railway being built. It was 118 years ago. That's the type of impact that this railway will build. We've seen in our generation a railway line being built from start to finish. And if you go back in history, rails and transport system, whether sea or rail or road, is what develops a country. That's how the United States was developed as a continent or as a subcontinent. And that will be the impact of the railway. If you look at all the towns that were built around the old railway, as we now call it, then those old towns are as a result of this railway, and we therefore expect to see a lot more towns and a lot more development coming along the entire SGR line. But remember, at the time when the now president was campaigning in 2013, they promised people that they will put up a railway, and they've done so. And I think it will transform a lot of people and a lot of lives across the country. And it will be a game changer in this particular election. And that's why you see, if you listen to the narrative that now NASA is starting to say and Rail is starting to say, they've stopped criticizing the rail line. They're starting to say, the rail line is very good. We will now go after people who might have stolen money while building the rail line. And that's now
he actually agreed that it will have an impact economically in the country.
Exactly.
And although saying, I mean, and he actually said the coalition government should also be recognized for that, him included.
Absolutely.
But questioning the costs, that was his issue.
You know, the politics of the cost of building a rail, and sometimes I think we've got very short memories. We need to go back and ask ourselves, the initial contracts of SGR, they were signed in 2010, 2011, 2012. Those costs have not changed. And sometimes you hear, like, for example, Barak here saying, this is cheaper than the other, and so on and so forth.
Which is the truth, eh?
But, no, let me just finish making my point. You do not take into account the cost of land that you then have to compensate. No, that you don't have, that you have to compensate.
Which was
in Tanzania, for example.
Which was completely unnecessary.
In Tanzania, for example, you don't need to compensate anybody for taking their land. In Kenya, you have, and we are the same Kenyans who, because when we hear a rail is going to pass nearby, we rush and buy land, and then we start saying, oh, I need to be compensated. We remember when we were building the bypass towards Langata, there was a long pending court case that delayed that bypass to be completed, purely because of compensation issues. So when we start saying that
it was completely unnecessary to have acquired land. There's already landscape that was used. It is lying fallow. Railway lines, as of their own existence, do not transform societies economically. There's a railway line passing right through my village just now.
And I'm sure your village is developing very well.
You can go and check, and it's lying fallow. In fact, it's being vandalized. So railway lines, there's even a railway line going through Karatina here, and it has not transformed the lives of the people there. When the British were building the Kenya-Uganda Railway, they had a very clear agenda, an economic agenda of what they wanted to do with that railway line.
You don't think the government has?
I have not seen that, and we need to be told about the economic and commercial activities that are going to develop, alongside this railway line. So a railway line, as of itself, is not a magic maker.
Although they have, in terms of the amount of load that will be carried or be ferried from one town to another, and the difference it will make from, I mean, we've been using, majorly been relying on road transport.
Yes, how does that transform the lives of the people who live along the railway line? If the goods are moving from Mombasa, say, for example, to Malaba, what happens in India and wherever in between? We need to be told about those economies.
Let me respond. Let me get Manjura first, then you respond.
I was saying, SGR is big, no doubt. So are the issues surrounding SGR. They are big. Somebody said something sometimes back, it stinks. Maybe it does. But you see, SGR is a project. SGR is part of development. And my advice to Jubilee is not to put much capital out of it. I mean, not to expect much out of it. Development doesn't decide elections. You know, people who lose elections, sometimes they look back and see what they have done for the people and ask themselves, do these people really know what they are doing? So, SGR is good, for those who say it's good, but it's part of development. And I'm saying development is not the kind of stuff you rely on to be re-elected if you are a sitting government.
What do you rely on?
Politics.
You know, the interesting thing is that when one party develops, and this goes way back from the Kibaki times, once you've done the develop, as you're doing it, everybody's complaining about it and saying, oh, you're doing this and we don't need it and so on and so forth. The moment you do it, they say, okay, thank you, you've done it for us, we don't need it anymore. The truth of the matter is, even Nairobi as a city developed as a result of the rail. Because the rail passed through here, and this was the stop. Then Nairobi as a city developed. And just before, let me just also correct something that Muluka said earlier. You see, we are almost practicing selective amnesia. We are forgetting that the feasibility studies that were done on SGR, the costs that were negotiated on SGR, were done even before this government came into power. They only implemented, what the former Prime Minister and Kibaki had already done.
The Prime Minister said the difference was 100 billion shillings.
Hussein, I thought your question was...
But my question was about whether it has any impact politically.
And it does.
Economically, it does have an impact. Everybody agrees, including the opposition.
If we begin looking at whether it is viable or not,
economically,
we will discuss until morning.
Right.
But the truth is, it is part of what you want to present to the country as development. And the argument I'm advancing is that development doesn't get you re-elected.
Okay, now that you say that, I'll move to my next question. And it's in terms of strategy. I think we touched on this a while back, but we've been seeing it happening a lot, and especially this week in the campaign trail. We've been hearing the NASA Brigade saying everybody in Jubilee is trying to gain mileage out of attacking Raila Odinga. On the other hand, we hear William Ruto and President Uhuru Kenyatta, every time they're talking, they're saying, tell the people what you're doing for them. I mean, development or your record should not be, or your issue should not be Uhuru or William Ruto. So my question to you, gentlemen, is, I mean, when you look at their strategy, who is appealing to the heart, because this has been in the campaign trail before, we've seen it in different countries as well, who is appealing to the heart and who is appealing to the brains in these campaigns?
I think there are two things. Let me start by saying one among them is, if I personally, as a voter, I'm of the view that we should move away from the rhetoric that we have seen and we start engaging society. When we engage society as leaders, because that's where we are going wrong. Somebody put it very uniquely, and I keep repeating this phrase. They said, the tranquility of a nation is based upon the premise of a very simple truth. Nothing is important in a democracy than an informed electorate. Informed being the keyword. So when you come and find you have an electorate that does not know, and you have people holding microphones every day, Prof, you'll agree with me, ignorance and stupidity, let me call it that way, is receiving capacity for expression on a daily basis. And that is why we have to start talking through the lenses that will not only attract, I mean, we can divorce politics at this point, yes, for a few minutes, and agree, where are we going to take this country? Where are we moving in the right direction? And if we are, what must change? I think the factor and the keywords we should be talking about is the change. We are 50 years removed from where we want to go, so we are talking about leapfrogging Hussein. And for us to be able to do that, we need a leader who understands the requirements of the 21st century.
So, what you're saying, in other words, these campaigns should be based on issues, including development records and all that. What you will do for
110%.
What you're saying will not work.
Correct.
What you're saying cannot win votes. You see,
look here. Talk to members of parliament who have stood and lost and passed and all that and won elections. They will tell you some of them will tell you at a time they had done wonders. The electorate sent them home. That is the reality in politics. That is a reality nobody should wait for. But to answer your question as to whether there is a side that is appealing to reason and other to emotion, let us start by being really very simple in what we are saying. Raila appeals to a certain constituency. So does Uhuru. And the tribe is on the table. When you are dealing with the tribe, you are dealing with emotions. So all these fellows are appealing to emotions.
No, Prof, I disagree.
Look here.
Prof, you're putting the tribe.
Let me finish. Because if it was a question of reason, I work at the University of Nairobi among professors, I should see something different. But when I'm in the senior common room, enjoying my cup of tea, the Kikuyu professor is just a Kikuyu like another Kikuyu in the village. So is the Luo professor.
And so is the Luo professor.
What is the reason why you are talking about?
But Prof, you see,
where we are going wrong. Get there.
No, where we are going wrong.
You should get there.
Where we are going wrong. I don't want to talk about
today, going to August 8th of this year. I don't want Kenyans are not about to engage you on matters of development.
I don't want somebody to elect me. I don't want somebody to elect me because, number one, I am the loudest voice. I don't want somebody to elect me because I am demeaning somebody. I don't want somebody to elect me because I am saying vile. I'm nearing, almost closing the bridge to call somebody names. I don't want to be elected on that line.
But that's why you may not be elected.
It is people like yourselves who say these things that then start making Kenyans not look at development records. But we must look at them because that's how we'll grow as a country. We must be able to elect leaders who we know are going to be able to make our lives better as a people, as a country. And let me tell you, Kenyans are clever people. Look at all the 47 governors. And I challenge you, tell me any governor who was elected who was not intelligent enough. No, that's beside the point.
My home village is Ilwombei.
Mine is Nyamimiso.
now where you come from,
yes,
nobody knows about SGR. That's the truth, and that's about
no, that's a different matter. That's a different matter. I'm sure they do.
Okay, Magoma. I mean, I'd want Prof to withdraw, because I don't know what you're basing that on when you say nobody knows about SGR.
Yes, they do. But the point I'm making is that because we are starting to say this thing that people don't vote on development, people do. People actually ask any woman who did not pay money for maternity and ask her how much has her life changed.
Right, but there's a reason why both the two key coalitions here, the Jubilee Party and National Super Alliance, and that is why the others have been struggling, according to polls lately, recent polls by Ipsos. There's a reason why they have strongholds, isn't it?
They do.
Regions.
They do. I agree. But you see, if you look at,
so at the end of the day, if you look
matters. If you look at those same polls, hold on. If you look at those same polls, you see some very interesting trends starting to develop. You will, for example, start seeing, just as a case example, if you look at in 2013, where Jubilee got about 5% in the Nyanza stronghold, those polls now moved to about 12%. But why has it moved from 5 to 12%? There must be a reason. If you look at, for example, what NASA keeps on saying, NASA sometimes say that we are starting to make inroads into Rift Valley. Why are they making those inroads? I don't think it's necessarily because of Isaac. But Kenyans themselves are starting to ask themselves, what are these leaders, whichever side you come from, what are you going to bring on the table?
Well, it's about ethnicity, it's about ethnic sentiment, and I agree completely with Manyora that people are getting into that domain when they are no longer thinking about things, they are feeling about things. You can feel the ethnic passion, the ethnic sentiment. Why is it that when we talk about the strongholds, we don't talk about a stronghold that is outside the ethnic conclaves? It's about ethnicity. All the other things are going to be seen through the ethnic prism that you have done this, and that's why the question that Manyora asked was very legitimate about where is your village. People are going to ask, yes, so there is the standard gauge railway line. What difference is it going to make? If you go to Butere, may I be heard? You've been talking and we've been keeping quiet.
Go ahead,
yeah, so be patient. If you go to Butere today, there's a railway line that was constructed. It got to Butere in 1936. And the people of Butere will be asking, what difference is this new line going to make that the one that got there in 1936 is not going to make? And so we are advising Jubilee, yes, talk about the railway line. I think it would be wrong to tell them not to boast about their gains, about their achievements. They must. Any government that is sitting must come and say, this is what we have done. But they must go beyond that and demonstrate how that is then going to change the lives of the people, both along the railway line. And he makes a very dangerous point that there is the Kenya of the railway line. So those who are far from that railway line will be...
That's not the point I made. That is not the point I made. That is not the point I made, is that in this generation, we've been able to see a rail line constructed from start
as a monument.
It's not as a monument. When I now have to go to Mombasa and I spend 4 hours, while previously I spent 8 hours, you call that a monument? Come on.
And I wouldn't call it, honestly, I wouldn't call it a monument.
My travel time has been cut by half. That's not a monument.
Not only that, there's also the element of goods. We keep talking about the railway line as if only to transport passengers only. You're cutting a serious deficit from 1.9 tons a year to 22. Who stands? Okay, but who stands? You see, it's not, and this is where we go wrong. And that is where the voters come in. It's not Jubilee. Neither is it NASA or any party.
What do you say? Business people who
it doesn't matter whether these things were conceived by NASA or by Jubilee, by Kibaki or Dinga or Kenyatta, whoever. They must translate directly into people felt needs. When you talk about the business community, that now things are going to be shipped from Mombasa, not on the roads but on the train. Who is this who is transporting things from Mombasa to Kampala to Jinja to wherever. Is it the ordinary voter in Kisii?
But the person who's consuming this is the ordinary voter.
You know what I'm saying? You say sometimes
there's a ripple effect. There's a ripple effect to the consumer, isn't it?
And that's why I'm saying that Jubilee must then translate their message
towards that. Until the consumer will write
they
this
must
isn't
take it there and tell the consumer this is how you are going to benefit.
I'm sure you all saw the Ipsos poll last week, and we can take a look at the figures where we saw findings suggesting that there could be a runoff. 47% for Uhuru Kenyatta and 42% for Raila Odinga. If we can have those figures right now, the graphics. Right, that is the methodology that we use. It carried between 11th to 23rd May. Right. The interesting thing is that in January 2017, Odinga had 30%. That was the last Ipsos poll. Kenyatta was still at 47%. I'll ask you first, where do you think Odinga got the 12% from? As you, I mean all of you, respond to, or you tell me what you think about those polls. Although the pollster seemed to say it's because after naming their flag bearer,
yes.
the votes that Mudavadi had and Kalonzo had and Wetangula had were consolidated to come to about 52% for Raila Odinga. Let me start with you, Manyora.
Politics doesn't work like that. Not because Mudavadi had maybe 5%, Kalonzo 10%, the politics doesn't work like that. Where he gets it right is that now NAS has a presidential candidate. So that has an impact on the numbers. But more significantly is that the NASA dream has become a reality. And that's where the numbers are coming from. It was, people were saying, will it be there? Will this NASA thing work? Then it worked. And then they got a flag bearer. And then they remain united, contrary to many people's beliefs. And this is where the numbers are coming from. That NASA now has the wings, and it is taking off. Well, the numbers will come naturally.
Okay. You are saying, I mean, this is what the pollster said. You're saying it doesn't work like that. I don't know what the rest of you think. I mean, now, and we can have a look at the next slide of the last poll in 2017, the poll preceding this one by Ipsos, where Uhuru had 47%, Raila Odinga had 30%. I think Musalia Mudavadi had about 6 or 3%, but we'll get those figures to you shortly. Manuel.
You know, first of all, just where Raila got his numbers from, it's just a consolidation of votes. You see, the moment they named the presidential candidate, the choice almost became clear. You are either on this side or on the other side. So therefore, a lot of the Kenyans were able to quickly say what side of the divide and they would be able to fall into. But also, let me also just correct something on those polls. I don't think they specifically say there's likely to be a runoff. If you interrogate those polls very well, and it took a bit of time to read them, they say that if you remove the undecided block, then you start having figures of 52% for Jubilee, and about 46%, I can't remember what the exact figure is for the NASA candidate. And that then starts giving you indication of what those polls or what direction the polls are likely to take. So remove the undecided.
Who will still be part of the election?
Remove the undecided, because remember again, the people are likely who are highly the people are likely not to vote. Remember that as well. Okay. So if you remove that and
they are likely not to vote or to vote, isn't it?
Yes. If you factor that in, then you start seeing one candidate at 52% and the other candidate at about 46 or 47%, and that doesn't give you a runoff situation. But what I must also say is that because the candidates have come together, particularly from the NASA side, therefore they were able to consolidate the blocks that they had from whichever places that they had them from. And Prof here might have some truth, but the truth of the matter is previously Kalonzo Musyoka was not part of CORD. Sorry, Kalonzo and Raila were not, the votes were not together, because Kalonzo was himself saying he's going to be a candidate. Musala was saying he was going to be a candidate. Their votes were different. When they start coming together, then you start seeing them accumulating to the 46.
You know why I don't really want to give much thought to this opinion polls. What would you say if Infotrak may come in with theirs tomorrow and Raila is at 52? You know, what I think we should concentrate on. You see, because you know, sometimes we want to behave like politicians. You see, what we are saying, elections are being held.
Yes.
Okay? We want to pray for our country for peaceful elections. Right?
True.
And I think the narrative must be, what is it we are not doing right that might compromise our elections in terms of peace in this country? You want to engage what was done in Nyeri, for example, and say, well, maybe it was an oversight. Maybe somebody was misadvised. But the people who are talking about peace, about cohesion, about togetherness, must be careful not to open things that can bring problems in this country. And it goes all the way down even to our constituencies, up to our counties, Hussein. And I've said this before. When we are in a county where there are even divisions, we must be careful how we navigate those divisions. And I think this issue of opinion polls, to me, really,
you don't think they matter?
They don't matter as much as...
well, I don't have much respect for these opinion polls. And the pollsters know that because I have had the opportunity to discuss with them in a public forum and to tear through them. And so I don't put much store to them, and I will not discuss them.
I won't argue with scientific evidence. I won't argue with it.
You'll not argue with scientific evidence. Okay, we'll leave it at that. I mean, we've had what Tom Wolf has always been saying, the research analyst there. You should challenge the results with facts.
I have done that.
I've
done that. I've done that. Seated with him and torn through them, and he couldn't defend it.
But allow me to correct them.
And we have seen from both sides of the divide, there are some that are always criticizing the pollsters.
Yes, the conclusions that he makes never sit together happily.
Very briefly.
Very briefly, there are just two flaws with this particular opinion poll. First is that if you read it carefully, there's about almost 200 people who they interviewed who in their poll itself say that are not voters or will not be voting in this particular election. So then that makes then the election, the results flawed. But the second flaw is that in the way the questions were framed, they are framed in such a way that you ask people many questions before you ask them the polling question itself. Then that has issues in its own right.
I'll not go into much detail on that now that Ipsos are not here, but as he always says, you should challenge the results with facts that can be tested. Barak says he does that. Finally, because we're running out of time, we saw NASA yesterday in the Western region launching their presidential campaign. I mean, they had a Western Kenya blueprint hinged on reviving the agricultural sector, establishing a dry port, and writing off debts accrued by the region's industries, clearly localizing their campaign messages. They did that, the same thing today we saw in Kapsabet, talking about tea farmers and all that. But Jubilee again, insisting there's nothing new, and all this thing that NASA is trying to use as their blueprint, talking about reviving agricultural sector, writing off debts, and, you know, Jubilee saying there's nothing new, it's what they have been doing. Actually saying NASA is just copying them. If you can look at those sound bites from yesterday.
Uchumi wetu wa area hii umekufa mikononi mwa Jubilee.
Right, that was Moses Wetangula. I think, okay, we have the next one.
Uhuru Kenyatta na William Ruto si sera. Hiyo ni majina ya watu. Watafute sera, wawachane na majina ya watu.
Okay, ultimately what we saw from Jubilee yesterday, I don't think that was the right soundbite, but they were saying NASA has actually copied what they have been doing. I don't know what you're saying there. And generally, the battle for the Western vote.
You see, NASA is following the same pit Jubilee is in. Parading development, that is Jubilee. NASA is again trying to think they can say the narrative, oh, we shall do this. All those things don't work. You get what I'm saying? And they have no message, I'm seeing no clear message.
From NASA.
And they think you'll get to State House through rallies. Let me tell you, Moi was a very good politician. If Moi was the politician today of NASA and he was in Western, you know where he will go? He will go and sort out the mess in Vihiga, where Mudavadi is being told, how come you have given Raila the presidency and even the governorship ODM is taking? He will go to Busia and tell Otoma, you could have a point, but you are going to create problems with enmity between the Teso and the Luya, and this could affect our votes. This is what Moi used to do. His politics will be in the evening at night, when he will call Otoma and they call Ojamong and tell them, Ojamong, you know you didn't do well. Utawachiwa hii kitu lakini hii miaka 5 fanya vizuri. We are winning and you are giving you a ministry. This is the politics I'm talking about. Even as a thing they are going to say the same thing Jubilee is saying on the platforms and think they'll win. I want to tell them now they will not.
Prof, I hope
because you want to compete Jubilee on development and Jubilee has lots of it.
Prof, I hope
you know you lose.
I hope and pray. I hope and pray that the youth of this nation are going to take us to another direction. Prof has just told us how we should be preaching the messages of peace, and as much, and you know, as we would talk about it, I agree with him 110%. But we cannot go or exit the stage without talking about that woman who was paying school fees. That's the message you're talking about. That the president was saying they are coping. It was to do with education. A woman who was paying exam fee every year, and their children or her children were staying out because they could not afford that. There's free primary education given. You're talking about some of the hospitals that we are seeing. That is a development record that my good friend Barak is saying we need to preach about. That is the politics I want us to play. Guess what? If we go by what Prof is saying, we'll be taking propaganda to a new all high, and that is what we want to run away from. Let me tell you why I hate propaganda, and let me tell you why I don't like that.
Just a minute. Let me
propaganda. Before you finish, propaganda came with a guy called Joseph Goebbels. If you've ever read that book, you know many people think that Hitler was
propaganda.
Was a minute. You know, they thought. I mean, he took propaganda to an all new high, and that is not. That's where I don't want it to go. No. That is the man. Many people say.
With the
many people say.
5,000 years.
He took propaganda to an all new height. He took propaganda to an all new height to actually bring in World War II. Hitler did not start World War II. It was started by that guy. And Prof, if we continue with that kind of politics of going at night and saying you should have done this or that,
but
what are we doing? I agree, but you see, we cannot swim that tide again.
Who I respect a lot. I come from a place. If you tell people where I come from that education is free, they'll think you are mad.
You know.
Okay, Barak.
That
they don't believe you.
That which he says is true. You can go to Nakuru County today. You will find that Kinudi Mbugua has stepped down.
Correct. That's the politics.
When do you think that was done? If you go to Muranga, you will find that Jamlek Kamau has stepped down.
Yes.
That there's somebody here who is thinking about the things that matter and that they are implementing them. Wetangula there talks about the economy of Western Kenya collapsing under Jubilee, which is not exactly the truth, because that economy collapsed a long time ago, in fact under the Kanu regime, and it has never picked up ever since that time, because it has never been addressed. So eventually it is a question of the cost of living, which to some extent Jubilee is addressing when they say that we are bringing electricity to your house, when they are talking about exams, they are talking about school fees, they are talking about maternal care and health care. They are kind of attacking the things that matter. NASA must start addressing the cost of living and start saying that the cost of living, if Jubilee have done the railway line, how is it affecting your cost of living? If Jubilee are saying the economy has grown, how is it impacting upon you? They need to touch on people felt needs and realities.
You know, Hussein, just to your original question, it was interesting to see that for the very first time NASA was trying to put a policy issue on the table. But that policy issue that they're putting on the table is the exact same policy issue that the Jubilee government began speaking about 1 or 2 months ago. And the question that we must ask ourselves,
which they should have begun talking about 5 years ago.
Yes, the question of free secondary school education. I mean, it has now become an issue because I think the deputy president spoke about it, and I think the president also spoke about it, and they've made it part of their campaign conversation. Then all of a sudden, the NASA is starting to speak about the same thing. It then makes you want to then wonder, where have they been all this time with all these things? They had 5 years, or 4 years rather, to be able to have come up with these things, and had they begun speaking of them a long time ago, we'll be having a different conversation.
Okay. Very briefly, I'm sure we can all answer this in 30 seconds. As gentlemen, was it right for the president to snub Raila Odinga? I don't know if it's the right word to use, to snub, Was it right that Raila was snubbed at the Madaraka Day celebrations in Nyeri?
It wasn't right. It meant either Raila was inconsequential.
Or did he even snub him? That is that should be the question actually. Did he even snub him?
So either in the estimation Raila was inconsequential, which is not, or they feared him. So it is up to them to figure out which is which.
Okay, let me ask that again. Did he even snub Raila Odinga?
I think from where I sit, I'm not quite sure I would call it a snub. Because then you've got to ask yourself, how many other leaders were present in Nyeri who were not given any recognition whatsoever? I think it's Madaraka Day, and the people who we needed to give recognition were the heroes who fought for us to get independence. And I think that was the crux of the matter. Because then if you call one person, then where do you stop along the line? Do you call every other leader to come to the podium, or do you recognize every other leader to come to the podium? That's for me.
Very quickly, I'll go with the narrative that my good friend is saying. But still, not many people will believe you. Okay, let's say he was snubbed. The question we should be asking is, has he, or what was the other Madaraka Day event that he attended? I'm posing that question to you.
It doesn't matter whether he attended another event or not. Madaraka is about nationhood.
You should have attended
the president, may I be heard?
Yeah.
And the president cannot be talking about peace, about unity, while also missing a very clear opportunity to demonstrate that we are working towards peace, towards unity, towards oneness. We must start running away from villagization of politics, of national issues. Madaraka is that which brings us together as a nation. And when you use that occasion to drive a wedge between ethnic communities, you fail.
Okay.
But what ethnic? I'm a bit lost. What wedge?
This thing was an ethnic ceremony in the village. The prayers.
We don't want to go that direction. But the last time,
everything about it.
We don't want to go that direction.
But in Machakos,
in Machakos, the company is the same.
We don't want to go that direction.
We're not going that direction, right?
Gentlemen, the last time we saw such an occasion, I don't remember which occasion exactly it was. Kalonzo Musyoka was given a chance to address the people.
Yes.
So he was in Machakos.
The one in Machakos.
Yes.
No, the question that I asked.
You are saying if you start giving Raila a chance, who else would you give a chance?
Have we asked ourselves how many leaders were present at that point in time, and where does the line stop? Okay, and where does the line stop? If we can be able to answer that, then we'll be able to answer the question.
Here, we could say we are equal. But you cannot convince a Kenyan, even a very young one, that there was anybody in that stadium other than Uhuru and Ruto who was equal of Raila. I think you are getting it wrong. Honestly.
Okay.
We need to love this country of ours by saying the truth.
There's one thing you say that I very quickly agree with Manyora. Is I think you would have been recognized if that's what you are asking. But again, if you're talking about national issues, let them be attended. Let's have them attend such national issues. National prayer breakfast.
They don't even have to speak.
Of course.
So you're just saying they should be recognized.
Yeah, of course. But they should also attend some.
We have to leave it at that. Of course, you're the one to interpret as a viewer at home. But thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Barak Muluka, Gabriel Muduma, Haman Manyora, and Manu Magoma, thank you so much for making time for us. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GameTime2017 on Twitter. You can also text us on #242. We're back after this break.